In this world, both a hero and a demon king coexist. The hero is dedicated to fighting for the empire, while the demon king rules over the demonic realm. When they finally confront each other, it appears that this time, the hero is taking a more aggressive stance, according to the demon king. The hero derives power from the world solely to eliminate the demon king, while the demon king's purpose is to vanquish the hero. Meanwhile, those who unquestionably serve the demon king are known as corps commanders. During the battle between the demon king and the hero, one of the 12 corps commanders attacks the hero's companions. These 12 official corps, numbered from 1 to 12, are the ruthless and powerful subordinates of the demon king. It is believed that no one can match their strength, but even they struggle against the hero. However, there exists someone who has defeated a hero before. The Zero Corps commander, who is our protagonist, Demon Arut Deon Hart. His identity as the Demon King's secret weapon is widely known, and he is the talent most treasured by the Demon King. The scene shifts to the present as Demon Arut tenders his resignation as the Zero Corps commander. The Demon King, shocked and agitated, breaks his pen and scatters papers on his desk. He questions why Arut suddenly decided to abandon him, but then unexpectedly embraces him, expressing his unwillingness to let him go. The Demon King asks if Arut truly meant his resignation and inquire about the sudden decision. Deon avoids eye contact, making it difficult for the Demon King to discern his thoughts. The Demon King asks if Arut dislikes the Demon King's castle or if he feels discriminated against because he is human. The Demon King, surprised by these thoughts, reflects on Deon's undeniable strength despite his humanity, considering him the most potent asset he has. He wonders who would dare challenge him. Deon responds that his subordinates did nothing wrong. In response, the Demon King asks for the reason behind Arut's resignation. He realizes that Arut's thoughts are inscrutable from his expression. Deon asks if the king would kill him if he didn't provide a reason. The king is taken aback and assures Arut that he has no intention of killing him, emphasizing how much he treasures him. The king speculates if Arut's decision is related to not being sent to the borders lately or a desire for combat. Arut dismisses these notions and apologizes for his sudden nosebleed. Concerned, the Demon King urgently summons the Zero Corps commander's doctor. The doctor arrives with Arut's servant and examines his condition. The Demon King inquires about Arut's health, to which the doctor explains that it is an after effect of the injury sustained in the battle against the hero. The Demon King becomes angry, frustrated by the doctor's statement he doesn't want to hear what he already know, and commands her to find a swift cure. He implies severe consequences if she fails. The doctor agrees to do her best. The Demon King decides to continue their conversation later, urging Arut to focus on recovery. He instructs his servants to take Arut to his room. Though Arut insists he can go by himself, the doctor insists on accompanying him. As Arut was being transported to his room, he couldn't help but overhear some demons engaged in gossip about him. They wondered if the Zero Corps commander had coughed up blood again, speculating that he had thrown his body in front of the hero when the hero chose to self-destruct. The demons expressed amazement that he had suffered only minor injuries, and one of them mentioned hearing that Arut was still considered the second strongest individual in the demon realm, right after the Demon King himself, despite his current weakened state. The gossiping demons showed deep respect for Arut, even though he was human. They considered him to be the closest in strength to the Demon King and held him in high regard. However, Arut's mind was preoccupied with thoughts of a simpler life. He just wanted to resign from his position and live a normal existence, but the rumors and speculations around him persisted, and he couldn't escape their chatter. Everyone was hurrying up to the room and they arrived at Zero Corps Commander room. The servants and the doctor vowed and says, "Please have a good rest." After being moved to his bed, Arut's mind raced with questions. Did he really kill the hero? Was he truly strong? He couldn't believe it, he was just Deon Hart, not Demon Arut. He considered himself the weakest human in the Demon King's castle. The notion of his strength seemed preposterous. The scene shifted as a maid approached, taking the cup from Arut after he had finished drinking. As he placed the glass on the tray, it nearly slipped, and the maid apologized. Arut commanded her to leave. As she departed, the maid thought that their hands had touched, and she assumed he was happy about it. However, Arut's thoughts were quite the opposite. He believed that she harbored a deep dislike for him, and he found it painful that she didn't even want to touch his hands. In contrast, he considered the Demon King's excessive concern stifling. A flashback scene showed the Demon King discovering Arut outside and questioning why he was out when he hadn't fully recovered. The king mentioned that he had instructed his subordinates to look after Arut. He emphasized the importance of eating to recover and even provided him with food, including a big roasted chicken. Returning to reality, Arut contemplated his predicament. He was just a human in a demonic realm, born with a naturally weak body that would crumble under the slightest stress. He had been mistakenly perceived as a strong individual, leading to his appointment as the Zero Corps commander. For now, he could maintain the facade that his condition was due to the battle with the hero. However, the thought of someone discovering his innate weakness filled him with dread, as he believed it would lead to his demise. He couldn't bear the idea of the Demon King and the 12 commanders ridiculing him as a feeble plaything. Arut resolved that he must escape from this place at any cost and seek a peaceful, worry-free life. His only path to achieve that was to leave the demonic realm behind. With determination, he declared, "I need to get out of this place at all costs and as peacefully as possible. I'm going to live a long and worry-free life. The only way to achieve that is to get out of the demonic realm." Deon's thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of Ed, the aide to the Zero Corps commander. Deon was surprised to see him and asked if he had just returned from the human world. Ed confirmed that he had and showed Deon a new cube called the Mirror Cube. Ed was one of the few demons that Deon felt comfortable around. Ed would often venture into the human world and bring back trinkets for Deon to play with, helping to alleviate his boredom. Ed mentioned that the Mirror Cube might help with Deon's boredom, but then he hesitated and asked if Deon had collapsed. Deon admitted that he had, but reassured Ed that he was fine now. Ed pondered how to improve Deon's condition and expressed anger toward the hero for causing it. Deon thought to himself that he might need to be reborn, but he didn't share this thought. Instead, he mentioned that he had brought this upon himself. Ed disagreed, saying, "That's not true. Didn't you stop the hero for the sake of saving us all?" Deon thought otherwise, but didn't voice his thoughts. Ed was determined to find a cure. Before leaving, Ed advised Deon to get ample rest. After Ed left, Deon reflected, "Well, there aren't many demons that'd care about me as much as he does. I am thankful to him." However, he felt that Ed's concern might be a bit excessive. He also hoped that their interactions wouldn't lead to any misunderstandings. In the Demon King's castle, the scene shifted to the Demon King as he examined Deon's resignation. The Demon King couldn't discern Deon's thoughts from his expressionless face, but smiled, thinking that Deon had always been unpredictable from the moment they met. A flashback was shown of the hero lying unconscious, leaning on Deon's body. The demons around them believed that Deon had killed the hero and prevented his self-destruction. They marveled at the impressive individual the Empire had sent. The Demon King asked Deon for his name, and Deon introduced himself as Deon Hart. The king offered Deon a place in the Demon King's army. Back in the present, the Demon King reflected on how things had changed since Deon joined them. He couldn't send Deon on missions due to his condition, but suddenly had an idea while looking at some papers. He promptly ordered a meeting of the Corps commanders and was excited about the possibility that his plan might satisfy Deon. A demon guard respectfully saluted as he laid eyes on his lord, Arut. Deon emerged from his quarters, visibly annoyed and deeply upset. He couldn't help but lament that the chance for a pleasant rest had been snatched away by the Demon King's summons. What puzzled him was that the king himself had advised him to rest initially. Deon couldn't fathom why the king had abruptly convened a meeting for the Corps commanders. As he walked, fear crept over him. He contemplated whether this meant that all the Corps commanders within the Demon King's castle had been called as well. Deon found it hard to believe that he was about to meet the other commanders, considering he was already petrified of ordinary demons. He couldn't shake the feeling that the king might be leading him to his demise. Two guards, observing his demeanor, discussed Deon's mood. One of them remarked, "Is he feeling any better now?" The other guard responded, "He appears quite angry about the sudden summons." Deon, immersed in his thoughts, realized he needed to maintain a composed facade. He understood that provoking them would be a losing battle. He sighed and managed to calm himself. Meanwhile, two demon guards engaged in their own conversation. One guard asked her companion for the name of the newcomer and questioned if he was the rumored human. It was her first time encountering Deon. Unable to recall Deon's name, her fellow guards began recounting a story. He recounted the time when Deon had slain a hero, and when questioned by the Demon King about his identity, Deon had casually responded, "I'm Demon Arut." The guard was astounded and exclaimed to her fellow guard, "Now you won't forget his name." She replied, "Well, that's the most demon-like name I've ever heard." Overhearing their conversation, Deon corrected them by stating that he had introduced himself as Deon Hart, not Demon Arut. The two guards, sensing Deon's sour mood, grew cautious but continued their chit-chat. One mentioned hearing that Deon was stressed because he couldn't engage in combat at the moment. The other suggested they leave immediately before Deon considered them obstacles. Deon felt devastated, realizing he stood no chance against them. He believed he was utterly weak. He wondered why the misunderstanding seemed to deepen over time, but he found solace in the fact that nobody dared to provoke him as a result. He understood that if he were caught in this situation, he would face immediate death. He couldn't let anyone discover his vulnerability before he escaped the demonic realm. He resolved to act with confidence, projecting an image of fearlessness as the commander of the Zero Corps, Demon Arut. On his way to the meeting, Deon encountered two guards who were taken aback by his newfound arrogance and confidence. Deon, maintaining his facade, commanded them to open the door. Upon his arrival at the meeting, the Demon King announced, "Last but not least, we have the Zero Corps commander joining us." The king's delight at seeing him was evident as he remarked, "You're here." Deon maintained a serious demeanor and was taken aback by the palpable tension in the room. The first corps commander, Jakar, suggested that Deon should sit next to the king. Meanwhile, the third corps commander, Asild, observed him and couldn't shake the feeling that Deon appeared weak, despite his reputation. Asild secretly longed for a chance to test Deon's strength in battle. The sixth corps commander, Velaton, voiced his disapproval, questioning if accomplishing an objective was any excuse for being late. The fourth corps commander, Idalia, light-heartedly slapped Velaton on the back, commenting, "I'm sure he has his reasons." Velaton responded with annoyance, wondering what was going on. The 11th corps commander, Ririnal, expressed outrage at what she perceived as disrespect towards Lord Arut, deeming it impudent. Deon, Zero Corps commander Demon Arut, found himself seated next to the king, overwhelmed by the sheer number of corps commanders present. He couldn't help but feel anxious and stressed, yearning to retreat to his room. The Demon King inquired about Deon's well-being, to which Deon replied with an apology for his tardiness. The king reassured him, stating that it was understandable and that Deon wasn't late on purpose. However, Deon couldn't help but think that he had indeed been late on purpose, driven by his reluctance to attend the meeting. A demon servant approached Deon, offering to pour him a drink. Deon's expression remained serious, but internally, he felt a surge of happiness. He thought, "It's here." He took a sip of the drink, thinking about how one could indulge in expensive alcohol during meetings in the demonic realm. This was the primary reason he had reluctantly attended the meeting. Suddenly, he realized that the drink wasn't alcohol but grape juice. Deon's disappointment was palpable, and they couldn't help but feel the weight of it. However, before tensions could escalate further, the Demon King intervened with a stern command, "Stop it, Arut. I ordered them to do this. Deon, you and your love for alcohol." Deon questioned, "Why am I the only one?" and the king responded, "Do you really not know?" Deon couldn't help but wonder if this was a case of discrimination against humans. Then, suddenly, a realization struck Deon, "Wait a minute. Is he trying to save on alcohol because he discovered how useless I am? Did he finally find out about me? In that case, have they gathered here to announce my end?" Deon's thoughts were interrupted as the king urged everyone to hear him out, as Deon was the reason for calling the meeting. Deon couldn't help but wonder if their execution was the actual plan. The king then instructed the 6th Corps commander to share the details of the document submitted to him. The sixth commander explained that although the 12 Corps had been protecting the village, there was a sudden, sharp increase in the number of demonic monsters. The 12 Corps could no longer handle the situation. After these monsters destroyed half of a small village, the remaining residents were evacuated to a fortified city. However, there was uncertainty about when that city might be ambushed, so reinforcements were needed to hunt down the demonic monsters. As the sixth commander finished their report, the other commanders began discussing the absence of the 12 Corps commander. They couldn't help but wonder if they had been killed by mere demonic monsters. Someone cautioned, "Watch what you say, even mere demonic monsters can become formidable if they band together." One commander added, "But they're just failed products, aren't they?" Deon couldn't help but think, "They're making such a huge ruckus." He understood their surprise, though. Among the demons that the Demon King had created, these demonic monsters were senseless beings, loyal only to their instincts and desires. They were considered failed products. Deon found it hard to believe that the 12 Corps commander had lost to these demonic monsters. Nevertheless, he couldn't help but wonder, "But what does this have to do with me?" The 6th Corps commander continued to report, explaining, "We're at war every day because there are too many demonic monsters. We don't know the reason for their sharp and abrupt increase in numbers." The Demon King replied, revealing, the now deceased hero used to kill those monsters. It's no surprise that he got killed when they gathered and charged at the village. Suddenly, the focus of the room shifted to Arut, the hero lord who had allegedly slain the hero. Arut's face contorted with despair as he thought, "Is this it? Are they intending to kill me using this as an excuse? But, in the first place, I never killed the hero." His gaze locked onto the Demon King, his eyes burning with anger and frustration. Arut couldn't help but think, more importantly, isn't the Demon King the one who tried to kill the hero in the first place? If anyone's responsible, it should be you. Demon King, say something. The king, a cunning and astute ruler, noticed Arut's accusing gaze. He couldn't help but think, those eyes, I knew it. He suspected that Arut might be itching for a confrontation. With a sly smile, the Demon King responded to the 6th commander's concerns, "Don't worry. The 0 Corps shall be dispatched as reinforcements." Arut's mouth fell open in disbelief. He was genuinely surprised by the king's decision. Arut thought in bewilderment, "What? What the hell is he talking about?" The Demon King continued to smile, feeling satisfied with his decision. He addressed Arut directly, saying, "Go there and relieve some stress. I know you wanted to go there." In his mind, the king thought, "I did well, didn't I?" The 6th commander, a keen observer of the situation, couldn't help but note how casually the Demon King seemed to be treating the assignment. "The Demon King is speaking as if he's just sending him on a neighborhood patrol," he mused. It was evident that the Demon King placed immense trust in the 0 Corps commander, believing that he could achieve what the 12 Corps commander could not. This raised a burning question in the 6th commander's mind, just how strong is he for the Demon King to trust him so much? Arut, on the other hand, reluctantly responded to the Demon King's decision. "My body isn't in perfect condition though," he said aloud. However, internally, he pleaded, "Please don't make me go. Tell me not to go." 3rd Corps commander picked up on Arut's hesitation and began to speculate, does he not want to go? The 1st Corps commander chimed in, expressing doubts. "I thought he'd make excuses and say that he doesn't want to go after hearing the report, but he's probably suppressing his desire to go on a rampage while calmly assessing his body's condition." 3rd Corps commander found himself agreeing, exclaiming, "Oh, is that so? That's amazing." He was genuinely impressed by Arut's self-control and composure. The 1st Corps commander, though still wary of Arut, acknowledged, "While I still don't trust him yet, that attitude of his is truly that of a great commander's." As the 3rd Corps commander looked at Arut, he couldn't help but think, not only is he strong, but he is also able to make good judgments. "My desire to fight him is increasing." The Demon King clarified his intentions, assuring Arut that he wasn't asking him to overexert his body. Instead, he was simply requesting that Arut take command of the 0 Corps and relieve some stress in the village. With a knowing smile, he asked, "That should be easy for you, right?" Arut hesitated for a moment, his internal struggle evident. "I don't care if the Demon King permits it. I'll definitely escape from this damn demonic realm." he thought fiercely. But after clenching his hands and weighing his options, he finally gave in. "In that case, I'll go," he said aloud, resigning himself to the task ahead. The chariot of demons moved silently through the dark forest, shrouded in an eerie silence. Inside the carriage, Deon remained lost in his thoughts, overwhelmed by grief and a sense of inevitability. This day finally had to come, he mused bitterly. Since I tried to run away, the D-Day has only gotten closer. A flashback revealed a moment when the Demon King had caught him packing, sensing his strong desire to escape. The king had apologized for keeping him waiting, to which Deon had reluctantly responded, "No, this is. Yes, I'm dying to go." However, his luggage wasn't meant for a journey to freedom, it was for fleeing to the Empire. He couldn't openly discuss his intentions with the Demon King, especially considering the lunatic emperor who had sent him to the Demon King and his hostile brother. Despite the challenges, Deon saw fleeing to the Empire as a better alternative to meeting an untimely death among monsters. He had decided not to entertain optimistic thoughts. Deon pulled back the carriage curtain to catch a glimpse of the outside world and spotted his aide, Ed. He had heard that the Zero Corps, as well as Ed, were highly competent. He felt confident that he could simply play his part and step away, letting them handle the rest. Another demon within the carriage engaged Ed in conversation, mentioning their imminent arrival at the village. Ed, in command, urged everyone to stay in ranks and maintain their vigilance. Deon, however, believed there was no reason for him to intervene. Even the Demon King had advised him not to overexert himself. Now that he was done with worrying, he simply wanted to enjoy his solitude within the carriage. He retrieved a bottle of wine labeled Demonic Realm Specialty Wine, a rare and exquisite beverage crafted only in the Demon Realm. Despite being unable to partake in it during the meeting due to the Demon King's presence, Deon wasn't about to give up so easily. When the meeting had adjourned, he had discreetly stolen the bottle. As he opened the bottle and took a sip, Deon couldn't help but think, "They say the aura of the spirit who died drinking this is out of this world, so I should at least try this before I die, right?" The wine was delicious, and he let out a satisfied sigh. In that moment, savoring the exquisite taste of the Demon Realm's wine, he felt a rare sense of contentment and vitality amidst the looming uncertainty of his future. Ed couldn't help but wonder why Deon had grown so quiet inside the carriage, drawing the curtains as if to isolate himself further from the world. He suspected that Deon might still be reeling from the incident that had occurred before their departure. In a flashback scene, a servant had approached Deon and mentioned that he knew Deon preferred riding horseback. However, he pleaded with Deon to ride inside the carriage until he had fully recovered, citing it as an order from the Demon King. Deon's internal response was clear, "What is he talking about? Of course, I should ride in the carriage. Who said I wanted to ride that ferocious beast?" Outwardly, Deon simply replied, "Well, all right." Ed, who had served Deon for a long time, could sense that Deon truly wanted to ride the horse. In the present moment, Ed wished he could encourage Deon to do as he pleased. However, the Demon King's order was for Deon's well-being, and Ed could almost imagine the Demon King's voice chastising him, "Are you insane? You thought it would be okay to have him ride horseback even after judging the state of his health?" Ed's attention was diverted when another demon called him, informing him that they were approaching the village. As they arrived, a scene of chaos unfolded before them. Houses were ablaze, and corpses littered the area. It was a nightmarish sight, suggesting that the demonic monsters had already wreaked havoc and moved on. Ed wasted no time. He commanded the group to chase after the demonic monsters, suspecting they hadn't gone too far. But suddenly, without warning, a group of these creatures appeared, forcing the Zero Corps to take defensive positions. The demons swiftly brandished their swords, and goblins charged at them, turning the scene even more chaotic. As Ed surveyed the turmoil, he realized that there seemed to be no end to these relentless foes. And then, a larger and more menacing monster appeared right in front of him, catching Ed off guard and leaving him in shock. The battle had taken an unexpected turn, and the Zero Corps were facing an even greater threat than they had anticipated. The scene shifted to the First Corps commander, who voiced concerns to the Demon King about whether the Zero Corps would be sufficient for the subjugation of the demonic monsters. He believed that due to the high number of monsters, reinforcements should be sent. The Demon King, however, appeared confident and assured the commander that the Zero Corps was strong enough. He emphasized that even if they faced real danger, they had someone who could handle it. Deon. Back in the village, Deon emerged from the carriage, wielding 2 daggers. He swiftly dispatched the monster that had been attacking Ed. Ed called out to Deon, expressing gratitude and explaining that he had been about to request help from him. But suddenly, Deon pointed a knife at Ed, his eyes betraying a hint of drunkenness. He questioned, "Are you my opponent as well?" Ed was taken aback and narrowly evaded the knife, clarifying that he was not an enemy. Ed began to ponder how Deon had obtained alcohol in the midst of this chaos. However, his attention was quickly diverted to his right, where a massive monster loomed. Deon inquired if this creature was his opponent. Without waiting for a response, the monster struck him, sending him flying into a pile of rocks. Ed was concerned for Deon, who now had blood on his back and was seated in front of the rocks. Deon confirmed that the monster was indeed the enemy and charged toward it with lightning speed. He attacked the creature like an assassin possessed by madness, stabbing and slashing with deadly precision. His face bore an insatiable thirst for battle, and he seemed to be consumed by a relentless fighting spirit. The transformation in Deon was nothing short of astonishing, and Ed could only watch in awe as his commander unleashed a fury that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. The soldiers of the Zero Corps watched in awe and disbelief as they witnessed the true capabilities of their commander, Demon Arut. Deon, in his transformed state, had become an unstoppable force. He swiftly dispatched the monstrous adversary, and as he stood triumphantly atop the fallen creature, he taunted, "Now it's your turn." Deon's demeanor had shifted dramatically. His facial expressions now resembled that of a joker, a twisted and manic grin etched onto his face. He continued to paint the battlefield with the blood of their enemies, delivering terror to the very core of their foes. His laughter rang out amidst the chaos, a chilling and unsettling sound that seemed to emanate from a place of madness. In the midst of this savage display, Deon couldn't help but reflect on the irony of his situation. He pondered how, with his supposedly weak body, he had managed not only to survive, but to thrive in this unforgiving world. It was a paradox that struck him as he reveled in the carnage, leaving his comrades both astonished and fearful of the power that had been unleashed within their commander. As Deon was on rampage, the scene shifts to the Empire. In the Empire, Emperor Eduardo Desert engaged in conversation with a hero who had returned from a mission to survey the demon realm. The hero reported to the king that during the latest subjugation effort, the commander of the Zero Corps had taken part. The hero described this commander as extremely strong and brutal, confirming the rumors that had circulated. He added that the commander of the Zero Corps was rumored to be the most prized talent of the Demon King. The king listened intently, and a hint of nostalgia tinged his words as he expressed missing someone. He mused that if the demons wanted to field their most talented individuals, the Empire should make its own preparations. The king then revealed that he had a perfect candidate in mind for such a role and offered the hero a special opportunity to achieve greatness. With the royal order extended to him, the hero accepted the challenge, setting the stage for a potential clash between the Empire and the demon realm, with the most skilled individuals on both sides poised to take center stage in the unfolding conflict. Deon found himself caught in the grips of a haunting dream, a flashback to the 8-year battle fought in the name of the Empire. The vivid recollection depicted a place soaked in blood, with the vanguard on the front lines sacrificing themselves. But Deon couldn't help but feel that these soldiers were nothing more than meat shields, forsaken by the very empire they fought for. It was a relentless nightmare, a vision of sheer hell. As Deon's dream portrayed the Empire's soldiers locked in a fierce battle against the demonic forces, his thoughts during the dream revealed his inner turmoil. He scoffed at the idea of fighting for the Empire, seeing it as a cruel joke. He had no desire to be a pawn in their game, no intention of sacrificing himself for an empire that had condemned him to this living nightmare. In his heart, he had only one purpose: to do everything in his power to survive and defy the Empire's wishes. Revenge was his ultimate goal, a means of taking back control over his destiny. Suddenly, Deon was jolted awake. He found himself seated in his own room, bathed in the soft, reassuring glow of reality. The dream had been harrowing, a haunting reminder of his past, but now he was safely in the present, determined to forge his own path and reclaim his agency in this tumultuous world. Deon slowly returned to consciousness, greeted by Ed's voice asking if he was awake. Ben was also present, and he mentioned that Deon had been asleep for the entire day. Deon learned that they had managed to complete his treatment while he was asleep but had been worried when he had returned covered in blood. Confused and disoriented, Deon asked about the mission and when he had arrived here. He had no recollection of what had transpired. Ed informed him that the demonic monster subjugation had been successful, with the monsters fleeing in fear. They had returned to the Demon King's castle to treat him after he had collapsed. Deon was surprised by the news and expressed his apologies for not being stronger. However, Ben sensed something was amiss. Deon seemed to be suffering from temporary amnesia due to his severe injury. Ben explained that Deon had been struck down by a demonic beast but had quickly gotten back up, so they hadn't thought much of it. Deon struggled to make sense of the situation. He began to remember fragments of the fight and realized he must have gotten drunk and caused trouble. However, he thought his condition was due to excessive drinking rather than an injury. Ben was amazed by the report that the Zero Corps had completed their mission without a single casualty, especially given the number of monsters they had faced. Deon insisted that he hadn't done anything, but Ben was quick to praise him for his humility. Inwardly, Deon couldn't fathom how he could have defeated so many monsters. He apologized to Ed, feeling like he had been a burden. Ed, blushing with admiration, assured Deon that he had been amazing and had defeated countless monsters at the front lines, setting a remarkable example as a commander. Ben, however, voiced his concern that Deon had overexerted himself, given the condition of his weak body. They advised him to be careful in the future. Ed, fired up with determination, reassured Deon that they existed for his sake and that they would become stronger so that Deon could trust and rely on them without worry. As Deon tried to make sense of the situation and wished for a moment of solitude, Deon found himself in a rather awkward situation as the fourth commander Adelia and the third commander Isilde entered the room, apparently having heard that he was awake. Isilde spoke in a voice that Deon thought was too loud, prompting Adelia to remark that he was even louder. She playfully asked Isilde if he had followed her because he wanted to play, but Isilde quickly clarified that he had come to pay his respects to the Zero Corps commander. Deon couldn't help but wonder why they were there in the first place and if they were close enough to him to pay him a visit. The first Corps commander Jakar intervened, scolding both Adelia and Isilde for not realizing that Deon was uncomfortable with their presence, and urging them to greet him quietly and leave. Frustrated and wanting to be rid of them, Deon threw a tantrum, demanding that they all get lost. He thought to himself about how he could possibly get rid of these unwanted guests. Isilde realized that he had been too careless in approaching Deon, given that he had just returned from a mission, and he apologized. Jakar urged everyone not to fight in the Demon King's castle, warning them not to kill each other. Deon was taken aback by the mention of killing and thought it was a ludicrous thing to say, considering his own weakness. However, he suddenly had an idea. He realized that if he could teach them about mercy, they might spare his life even after discovering his true weakness. Isilde offered a sincere apology, and Deon acknowledged his anger but emphasized that there was no reason for violence just because he was angry. He explained the concept of mercy, urging them to show it even to those who lied or were weaker. Deon hoped this lesson would help him in the future. However, his speech was interrupted by the atmosphere in the room, which became tense as if he had scolded them. They appeared scared, and Deon was perplexed, thinking he had delivered the message nicely. Jakar changed the topic, congratulating Deon on the successful completion of his mission and remarking that he must have worked really hard. Adelia chimed in, sweetly sharing that there was much talk about him all over the castle, with rumors suggesting that he had single-handedly wiped out half the monsters. Deon was shocked by the exaggerated rumor and worried that he would end up claiming achievements he hadn't earned. Ed was proud and happy, while Isilde mentioned that he had heard tales of Deon's heroism and came to ask a favor. Deon couldn't help but wonder what favor Isilde might request. Isilde explained that it wasn't a big deal, he simply wanted to spar with Deon once he fully recovered. Deon's expression turned from shock to fear at the prospect of sparring with a powerful demon like Isilde, especially as the third Corps commander who oversaw elite guards protecting the Demon King. He realized he was in for a challenging situation. Deon had asked Isilde if he meant sparring with him, still trying to process the unexpected request. Isilde confirmed that he had been hearing a lot about Deon's greatness and wanted to learn from him, which surprised Deon even more. J-Car, the first corps commander, chimed in, finding the idea of a spar with Deon intriguing. J-Car pondered, come to think of it, the Zero Corps commander has never engaged in a spar since taking on the role. I also had a curiosity about his skill level. I wonder if he'll agree to this proposal. Idalia chimed in excitedly, oh my! To witness Sir Arut in a sparring match. You do realize that the Fourth Corps deals with information, right? I'll make sure to gather as many spectators as possible. Asild says, he doesn't care if they come, just make sure they don't interfere. Deon, however, couldn't help but think, he can't even say no. Why are they making decisions on their own? How does this even make sense? Inwardly, he feared, I'm going to be obliterated into a million pieces with a single strike of his hand. When Deon replied, he stammered, I think it will be quite difficult to accept a spar. I'm still feeling the aftermath of the battle with the monsters, and I think my strength. I mean, I could die. No, I mean, I might actually die. Deon couldn't help but berate himself, thinking, what am I even saying right now? Asild had her suspicions, thinking, is he trying to avoid the fight? But why? Deon's inner thoughts continued, wow, look at those suspicious eyes. I guess I can't just get by with futile excuses. Amazing. J-Car finally spoke, acknowledging Deon's reluctance, even against a commander, you have such confidence. He was, of course, referring to Deon. J-Car had always wondered why the Zero Corps commander refrained from sparring, but now he understood. The Zero Corps commander was actually concerned about his opponent, he noted. Deon and Asild were both taken aback by J-Car's insights, and Asild gave Deon an uncertain look, considering the implications of his confidence. Exactly, J-Car continued, it's for your sake that he rejected your sparring proposal. Moreover, it hasn't been long since his last battle, so I'm sure it'll be harder to control his temper during the spar. Asild thought that Deon's confidence might indicate that the spar wouldn't end until one of them was dead. He realized that Deon had an immense belief in his own victory, a level of confidence that he had never seen before. This was the sheer talent that the Demon King had acknowledged. Asild then spoke to Deon, acknowledging that he couldn't guarantee his victory and couldn't say for certain that he wouldn't die in the process. He admitted that he didn't have the heart to fight Deon to the death, expressing gratitude for Deon's consideration. Deon found himself in a situation where his initial reluctance had led to a deep discussion about the potential consequences of a spar. As everyone contemplated the implications, the atmosphere in the room remained tense and uncertain. Deon found himself bewildered by the turn of events, unsure of why these hostile commanders were treating him with such respect. Meanwhile, Ed, one of his aides, was impressed by how Deon had managed to garner respect from the commanders. Deon couldn't comprehend the situation fully, but he secretly hoped that he could somehow avoid the spar. Asild, however, hadn't given up entirely. He expressed his determination to request a spar again once he felt confident enough not to die in the process. Deon was shocked by Asild's persistence, thinking to himself that Asild should just give up already. Asild's enthusiasm was palpable as he left, stating that he felt invigorated by making a promise with Deon and was off to train. Asild's departure left everyone in the room, and Deon was still struggling to make sense of it all. J-Car commented that Asild had no ambition to do anything previously, but Deon's influence had sparked a newfound determination in him, which J-Car considered a positive development. Idalia, on the other hand, found Asild quite loud in his newfound enthusiasm. Deon, feeling overwhelmed by the situation, remained bent over, trying to process everything. Suddenly, Deon touched his forehead, seems like his head is aching, and his fever was rising again. Ed apologized to the two commanders for his condition and asked the two commanders to let him rest. The two commanders offered their concern and hoped for Deon's swift recovery. Ben, his aide, provided him with a glass of water as Deon contemplated his desire to escape from the demon realm. Before J-Car left, he expressed his eagerness to spar with Deon if he recovered and felt up to the challenge after sparring with the third commander. Deon was barely holding on, and after J-Car's sentences, he couldn't take it anymore and he almost collapsed. The scene shifted to Deon wandering somewhere in the Demon King's castle. Deon was overwhelmed by the constant demands and attention he was receiving from various demons in the Demon King's castle. The idea of seeing the members of the Zero Corps getting moderate exercise and fulfilling promises with the commanders had pushed him to his limits. In a moment of frustration, he kicked a rock in his path while muttering, "Please just leave me alone." Unfortunately, the rock hit a demon's head, leading to an unexpected encounter. The three demons was angry and approached him. But when they realize it's the commander, they greeted him as Demon Arut, the Zero Corps commander, and apologized for causing a disturbance. Deon was confused, not realizing that the demons were referring to the incident with the rock. The demons explained that they were teaching the incubus a lesson and promised not to disturb him again. They said their farewell to the commander, thinking Deon was not in a good mood. Deon considered it fortunate that the demons had left on their own, leaving him to contemplate what he should do with the young one. He was bothered by the fact that he had looked at a demon weaker than himself for the first time. The incubus was terrified as Deon was looking at her, and she knows that he is normally quiet and is known to be brutal when he's angry. The incubus was sure that her presence disturbs Deon. She shed tears thinking that she was going to die. However, to her surprise, Deon reached out his hand to help her stand and reassured her that the demons were gone. The incubus couldn't believe that Deon was treating her with genuine kindness. She mentioned being an incubus and asked if Deon found it disgusting to be physically in contact with her. Deon countered this by asking if he, being human, was disgusting. He assured her that he didn't find her disgusting either, emphasizing their shared struggle to survive in the tough demon realm. The incubus was touched by Deon's kindness and expressed her joy at being treated this way. However, she couldn't help but bring up a bothersome matter, mentioning that she'd love to repay him and asking if he had some time to spare. Deon found himself unable to respond, feeling that he had gotten involved in something quite troublesome. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to the Demon King, who had come to visit Deon in his room but found it empty. Hien, the castle gardener. She had insisted on repaying his kindness by giving him a tour of the garden within the Demon King's castle. Deon, not having much else to do at the moment, reluctantly agreed. As they walked through the castle, Deon couldn't help but wonder about the existence of a garden in such a dark and foreboding place. The very idea seemed contradictory to the demon realm's reputation. Hien, on the other hand, seemed genuinely excited to show him around. Upon reaching the garden, Deon was pleasantly surprised. The entrance was adorned with beautiful flowers, and the air was filled with the refreshing scent of greenery. It was a stark contrast to the rest of the castle, and he couldn't help but smile. However, Deon's brief moment of tranquility was interrupted when one of the demon plants in the garden lunged at him, attempting to bite. With quick reflexes, he dodged the plant's attack, much to Hien's chagrin. Hien scolded the plant, making her demeanor suddenly shift from cheerful to stern. She reassured Deon and apologized for the plant's behavior. Deon couldn't help but feel that there was something peculiar about Hien, beyond her role as a gardener. As Deon ventured further into the garden, he realized that the serene entrance was deceptive. The garden was teeming with demon plants, some of which seemed rather aggressive. Feeling increasingly uncomfortable, he decided he needed to leave. Deon quickly made up an excuse about needing to visit the training grounds to see the Zero Corps, emphasizing his urgency. Hien appeared disappointed but understood. She even mentioned she had wanted to show him even more intriguing plants deeper within the garden. Deon hurriedly left the garden, relieved to be away from the peculiar and dangerous demon plants. He thought to himself that the safety of his room was preferable to the hazards of the castle's garden. Meanwhile, Hien, left alone with her plants, conversed with them. She expressed her wish to see Deon again and decided to give him a special gift from the garden. She had noticed his fondness for plants and hoped this gesture would bring them closer. As Deon walked away from the garden, he reflected on his experiences. He couldn't escape the feeling that there was something unusual about the Demon King's castle, and he reluctantly admitted that it might not be such a bad idea to visit the Zero Corps members, especially after the incident during his drunken episode. The trauma he had recently faced made him more willing to face his responsibilities and see those who were working hard for him. When Deon arrived at the training grounds, he noticed that it was empty. Instead of leaving, he decided to find a spot to sit and wait. He believed that avoiding his duty to visit the Zero Corps wouldn't be productive, and he was curious about their strength. As he looked around, he spotted a wooden sword on the side, likely used by the soldiers during their training. During the recent monster subjugation mission, Deon had been out of his mind and couldn't recall anything. He thought this was a good opportunity to test his own physical capabilities. He picked up the wooden sword, but to his surprise, it was too heavy for him to lift. It made him realize that on the battlefield, he could barely handle a wooden sword, let alone an iron one, due to the cursed strength that afflicted him. As a result, he had always relied on using a dagger. His thoughts were interrupted when the Zero Corps soldiers arrived. They were surprised to see him holding the wooden sword, and Deon hoped they hadn't witnessed his struggle with it. However, they greeted him warmly and expressed their concern for his well-being. They praised his performance during their last mission. Deon interrupted their praise, reassuring them that he was fine and asking them to relax. However, the soldiers continued to murmur among themselves, noting that he still appeared tired and expressing their worry for him. They vowed to protect their commander no matter what. Deon couldn't understand why they were looking at him with such pity. He decided to get to the point and explained that he had planned to visit right after their mission but was unable to due to various circumstances. He apologized to his soldiers for the delay and praised their excellent work during the mission. Deon intended to offer encouragement and watch them train afterward. Deon's turn around and says to the soldier that he just came by to say that, and he added he's pretty sure they would have done an outstanding job even if he didn't say anything. As he began to walk away, one of the soldiers suddenly drew a sword and dashed toward him. Deon lost his balance and slipped, fearing that he would humiliate himself by falling. To avoid falling, he forced himself to kneel, just as the soldier swung his sword where Deon's head had been moments before. Both Deon and the soldier were surprised by this near-miss attack. The Zero Corps soldier expressed concern for Deon's well-being, asking if he was okay. Deon was bewildered by the sudden attack and thought about running away, deeming the situation dangerous. As he attempted to escape, he accidentally elbowed the attacker in the face, causing the man's nose to bleed. Deon was wondering what is happening. As the man fell down, he saw the face of his attacker. It was at this moment that Deon realized the attacker was a human. Deon couldn't comprehend how a human had managed to infiltrate the Demon King's castle. The soldiers called out to check if he was okay, and he realized that if these soldiers didn't recognize him, the intruder must indeed be an outsider. The intruder expressed his intention to flee, but Deon's demeanor suddenly changed. He lifted the wooden sword and struck the intruder with a menacing look in his eyes. Deon instructed the soldiers to report the incident to the Demon King and have the intruder locked up. Without further ado, Deon left the training grounds. The Zero Corps soldiers were left feeling disheartened, thinking that Sir Arut seemed disappointed in them. Some soldiers believed that they had allowed the intruder to infiltrate the training grounds, but it was Deon who had captured the culprit. One soldier recalled what was happened. All of his movements were so fluid and quick. Sir Arut, who seemed to be leisurely taking a stroll, dodged the ambush with unbelievable speed, and even struck back at him. Plus, he caught the intruder while was trying to run away, and wrapped up the situation in an instant. The stature of the Zero Corps commander is so high, that his presence overshadows the Zero Corps. I had trained even harder to be acknowledged. But the commander's skill level was beyond my expectations, and we haven't even reached the tip of his toes. One soldier felt inspired and fired up, declaring that there was no time to waste. They decided that they would train tirelessly from that day forward to become of greater assistance to Sir Arut. They were determined to push their limits and reach the level of their commander's prowess. The Zero Corps soldiers were ready to start their intensive training without rest, all with the goal of being a valuable asset to Sir Arut. The scene shifted back to Deon, where he realized that his wrist was hurting from overexertion while handling the wooden sword. Despite successfully handling the troublesome situation with the intruder, he decided it was time to rest. He lay down on his bed, gazing at the open curtains, and he sleeps. As he woke up, he says that he sleeps very well. He wondered why the Demon King was there and asked if he was dreaming. The king assured him it wasn't a dream, and Deon became alert, asking why the Demon King had come. The Demon King requested Deon's presence, and he remembered that this is about that prisoner, and they began to walk towards the underground dungeon. Deon questioned the choice of location, wondering why the king had brought him there. As they arrived at the dungeon, a soldier saluted them, and Deon grew increasingly puzzled. The king ordered the soldier to open the door, revealing the human intruder in shackles. The sight was chaotic, with blood and 2 other prisoners on the ground. The king drew Deon's attention to the captured intruder, asking if he seemed familiar. Deon was confused, and the prisoner taunted them. The king emphasized the intruder's incredible power to strike down a demon despite being a human and revealed the prisoner's face to Deon, who suddenly realized it was a hero. Deon understood the dire choice a hero faced when confronting the Demon King: either self-destruct to harm the Demon King or disperse their power as a fragment of a hero. Deon knew that the Empire collected those with hero fragments, but officially recognized only those who achieved significant accomplishments as true heroes. The king lamented the situation and called the intruder a hero candidate or remnant of a hero. Deon agreed that sending a hero or hero candidate to the demon realm was unusual and wondered about the emperor's intentions. He then requested some private time with the prisoner, and the king agreed. As Deon faced the prisoner alone, they exchanged words. The prisoner accused Deon of being a traitor, while Deon questioned what sins the prisoner had committed to be abandoned by the emperor. Deon hinted that the emperor might have had other motives for sending the prisoner to the dangerous demon realm. The conversation left the prisoner bewildered and doubting the emperor's loyalty. Before leaving the prison, Deon warned the prisoner to think carefully about his circumstances. As he walked away, the prisoner vowed to kill the emperor for betraying him. Returning to the king, Deon expressed his disappointment with the superficial loyalty of the prisoner and suggested they kill him. The king agreed and asked for a favor in return, to which Deon consented. The Demon King says that he should give him a favor in return. Deon wondered what he wants. The king says that the First Corps has requested an immediate assistance. They said that it wasn't a hero candidate, but a real hero that is participating in the battle. He says that as Deons already know that demon and heroes don't get along well. Deon's thought in his mind: if the hero that appeared on the front lines isn't some fragment hero that's been used and cast aside by the emperor, like their prisoner, but a real hero, then the average demons wouldn't be a match at all. The king says, and one more thing, you're curious too, of the intention of the emperor who had sent a fragment along with the real hero, so he asked Deon to take good care of the mission as well. Deon was not answering, he was keeping quiet, and suddenly his seriousness has changed, seems like he just woke up. He asked himself, when did I get here? The king says that Deon needs to get ready to depart, so let's head up, he says. Deon was confused where he is, and he doesn't know where he is going. The scene shifts outside the Demon King's castle. Ed is waiting for Deon, and he ready the chariot for Deon. Deon standing upstairs thinking, I remember following the Demon King to the underground dungeon. But as I regain consciousness, I'm going off to some insanely scary place again. I keep blacking out, and every time I do, I feel like I'm going insane. Is this a disease? What I can somewhat recall is the intruder will die. The Demon King ordered me to go to frontlines. And the appearance of the new hero. Ed approached him and says, Sir Arut, all preparation for departure are complete. He replies that he understood. He walked to go inside the carriage. While walking he was thinking, since I'm going to go, I might as well check out the face of this new hero to comfort myself. After all, it is true that I'm curious. As Ed observing Deon, he thought, I know he quenched his immediate thirst by going on the monster subjugation trip, but I'm sure it wasn't satisfying enough for Sir Arut. I hear things are quite dire on the front lines. But looking at Sir Arut's face, he looks happy as if he's going on a vacation. But suddenly the 11 Corps Commander Resignation was flying interrupted their thought as she called Sir Arut. She says that she really miss him. And she landed on the ground. Deon asked him what is he doing here. Deon thought, despite her cute appearance, she possesses the most demonic energy. Second only to Demon King. I'm not going to be fooled by the appearance anymore. Resignation says, I heard you were going to the front lines, so I wanted to give you this. She presented a brilliant pink necklace. Deon wondered why she giving it to him. And he thought it's a suspicious looking necklace. But why she giving it? Since it looks suspicious, he decided not to accept it. Resignation explains, I cast a defensive spell on it so it will prevent you from dying at least once. It wasn't much, but I wanted to somehow be of help to you, Sir Arut. After Ririnal finishes her sentences, Sion immediately grab the necklace to her hand and thanking her. He tap her head, and while looking at the necklace he was thinking, she's giving it to me, so I should obviously accept it. Why should there be a reason to reject a present? And suddenly he realizes that he let his guard down. Ririnal was so happy she was blushing. Deon stopped tapping her head, thinking, that lively moving thing, that ribbon. No, that tentacle is quite unpleasant, but Ririnal doesn't seem like she's unhappy, so that's a relief. But seems him scared in going to stop that. Ed vowed and thanked Ririnal. Ed says that he knows that Sir Arut is strong. He says, I was worried due to the aftermath, however I can now rest easy thanks to the necklace you give to him, Miss Ririnal. Ririnal replies to think of Sir Arut to such extent, you are such a great lieutenant, continue to serve Sir Arut with that attitude. Ed replies, leave it to me. While Deon at the back was annoyed. Ed then assists Deon to the carriage. They leave and Ririnal waving at them as they leave. Inside the carriage, Deon was thinking, the aftermath, I obtain it after killing Hero, huh? To be clear on this matter, I did not restrain a hero who was going to self-explode, nor did I absorb the self-explosion. At that time I was merely a comrade of the hero. A flashback scene was shown. Deon thinks, this is all left, we lost so many people on the way here. The hero called him Sir Hart. Please remain here, he asked the hero if he was serious, and he immediately replied yes. The hero explains that he will finish the battle along with the Empire troops. He says to Deon Hart that this is more than enough. Since this Demon King is known to be the strongest in history, there's no way to guarantee your survival, the hero says to Deon. He added, we also need someone to report the result of this battle to the Empire. I would like you to fulfill that role, Sir Hart, so please go back. There's also something you need to do right. The hero says, I know why such a previous hero such as yourself is coning along on this adventure. It's because you need a greater achievement to fulfill your wish, right? If you return with the result, it will be a great achievement. Anyways, if even the achievement you accomplished in a war weren't enough and you had to join this quest, just what did you request upon the Emperor? Did you by chance ask for an entire nation? When Deon was about to reply, the hero said his farewell and he will hear his answer when he go back. Deon was left in the forest while the hero and the troops was battling the Demon King and the Demon Army. While Deon was sitting waiting for the hero, he thought, I want to confirm, but I can't move my legs. I don't know if it's guilt, shame, or fear, or is it all three? The role of the comrade is to clear a path to reach the Demon King. But when I asked to remain, my first instinct was relief. God damn it, I want to live. No, I want to survive. Let's see the result of the battle at least. He stand up and wore his hood. He thought, if they won I will bring them back, if they lost I should go report it. It should be fine if I was looking out from far away. Deon gets out of the bushes and he looked from above the cliff. He saw the hero surrounded by the demon and the Demon King was there also. He thought that it's already over, it's too overwhelming. The hero is bloody kneeling in front of the Demon King. The Demon King asked the hero for his last word. The hero smiled and a dazzling light came out of his body. The light was brimming, it even reached Deon uphill. Deon thought that it was a self-destruct. Is this how it ends? I need to report this to the Empire. Suddenly a demon appeared from Deon's back and asked who he is. Deon was surprised. The demon says that this small fry was hiding. He swung his weapon to Deon and he thought it was his end. In the midst of the chaotic battle, a menacing demon lunged at Deon with a sword in hand, ready to strike. With a powerful swing, the demon's blade descended, but it found nothing but the cold ground as Deon skillfully evaded the attack. Confused by the sudden and unprovoked assault, Deon questioned the demon's motives. Undeterred, the demon launched another attack, and although Deon managed to evade most of it, a sharp cut grazed his face, causing it to bleed. Deon realized that if things continued like this, escape would be impossible. He needed a plan. As the demon prepared to strike again, Deon swiftly sidestepped and closed the gap, positioning himself beneath the demon. Using the demon's knee as a platform, he leaped high into the air and drove his knife into the demon's neck. The demon glared at Deon, infuriated, and attempted to grab him. However, Deon knew his initial stab had been too shallow to penetrate deeply. He needed to avoid the demon's grasp. Suddenly, the ground gave way under their combined weight, and they tumbled off a cliff. Deon clung to his knife, still embedded in the demon's flesh. The impact at the bottom of the cliff was jarring, and the demons below watched in astonishment as the dust gradually settled. To their surprise, Deon emerged above the lifeless ogre demon. Deon couldn't believe he had survived the fall, and he realized that he must have landed on top of the ogre. He thought to himself, I guess you can stab an ogre if you put all your weight behind it. However, he soon grasped the gravity of his situation, realizing that he had landed in the heart of the enemy camp. As Deon stood there, a formidable figure appeared before him, the Demon King, arms folded, with a menacing glare that seemed to spell doom. Next to him, the hero, wounded and struggling to speak, questioned Deon's presence and why he hadn't fled when the hero was about to self-destruct. Deon replied, I'm sorry, I wanted to fulfill my duty. To his astonishment, the hero had abandoned his self-destructive plan. The hero's thoughts were filled with admiration for Deon's kindness and loyalty, and he wished that Deon could become the next hero. The hero's body began to emit a brilliant light, unlike the destructive one seen before. Deon watched in awe as the hero's consciousness faded, and he prayed for Deon to inherit some of his power. A radiant light enveloped Deon as the hero's power transferred to him. Deon was puzzled, wondering if it was even possible to transfer a hero's power through sheer will. Despite the infusion of power, Deon felt no immediate change in his abilities. Demons around them were bewildered, speculating whether Deon had killed the hero or not, as he coughed up blood, attributing it to his fall from the cliff. Deon began to accept his impending fate, realizing that he was outnumbered and severely injured. However, his resolve remained unbroken. The Demon King, curious about Deon's reaction, asked for his name. Deon decided it was best to humor the Demon King, responding, Deon Hart. As he considered his options, Deon contemplated using this unexpected situation to his advantage, thinking that he might escape when the opportunity arose. Surprisingly, the Demon King expressed interest in Deon joining the demon army, leaving Deon momentarily surprised. The Demon King assured him that there would be no opposition from humans or demons after witnessing what had transpired. As Deon looked at the lifeless ogre and hero beside him, he realized that survival had taken an unforeseen turn, and he muttered to himself, I tried to survive, but I never thought I'd survive like this. The scene shifted back to reality, with Deon seated inside a carriage. He couldn't help but reflect on recent events, thinking, it started from that day. All the people in the Demon King's castle, the king himself included, share the deluded opinion that I'm astoundingly powerful. They should really tone it down a notch. They've gone so far that I've become deathly afraid of the future. Just then, a voice interrupted his thoughts. It was Ed, calling out to Deon, announcing their arrival. They had reached the border between the human world and the demon realm, the front lines where ceaseless battles raged between demons and the Empire. Upon disembarking from the carriage, Deon was met by the First Corps commander, who greeted him warmly, saying, I've been waiting for you. Deon couldn't help but notice the commander's worn appearance, and he thought to himself, judging from his shabby state, things must be really bad here. Deon reciprocated the greeting with a handshake, even exchanging pleasantries with the Zero Corps commander. As Deon settled into this unfamiliar environment, he couldn't help but reflect on the decision he had made earlier. He ruminated, but I thought I would die if I refused, so I couldn't help it. I should have turned him down right then and there, but I thought I would die if I refused. He was referring to the king's offer to join the demon army, and despite his inner turmoil, he maintained a forced smile. Observing Deon's demeanor, the First Corps commander, Jakar, noted to himself, as expected, his expression has eased up after we left the Demon King's castle. I'm sure he's looking forward to the battle. Jakar then informed Deon, sorry to disappoint you, but there is currently a lull in the fighting. We don't know when the battle will resume, so you can prepare in advance. Deon was taken aback by this news and questioned, what? What are you talking about? Who's looking forward to what? He couldn't fathom the situation and asked if Jakar was referring to the Corps. Jakar clarified, no, I'm naturally referring to you as well. I would like you to step into battle as soon as the Empire troops start attacking. Deon, visibly surprised and filled with trepidation, stammered, you want me to fight too? The scene shifted to the human world's front lines, specifically the Empire's barracks. A human soldier was reporting to the Empire's hero, Cruel, about the situation. He mentioned that according to their scouts, the Zero Corps commander would be participating in the upcoming battle, and the Demon King's troops seemed to be in high spirits as of yesterday. On the other hand, the Empire's troops were not as confident. Cruel, the hero, interrupted the soldier's report and thought to himself, what a headache. Why did that infamous bastard come down here? The Zero Corps commander, the Joker of the Demon King, and the presence that's known to be even more outstanding than the First Corps commander, who's supposed to be the strongest out of all 12 commanders. The soldier asked the hero what they should do in response to this news, expressing concerns about their chances of victory. Cruel, deep in thought, finally replied, "We will send an assassin." The soldier was taken aback, wondering if they were truly considering assassinating the Zero Corps commander. Cruel elaborated, "If the Zero Corps commander actually exists, that is. I know his rumors are incredible, but no one has been able to confirm these rumors. Perhaps the Zero Corps commander's existence itself is an illusion created by the Demon King to lift their spirits. If we can reveal the truth with one assassin, it will be a huge accomplishment. Prioritize getting information on the Zero Corps commander." The scene then shifted to Deon and Ed, with Ed preparing Deon for the upcoming battle. Ed began by outfitting Deon with a specialized bondage cloth, covering his entire body. Deon was clearly apprehensive, thinking to himself, do I seriously have to participate in the battle, too? Although I was worried because of the pressure and the outcome, I never resented the position of the Zero Corps commander. It was actually convenient because everyone was delusional and avoided me. But today, I really resent this position I hold. Ed noticed Deon's unease and asked if he was feeling unwell. Deon assured him that he was fine, and Ed continued to secure the bondage cloth. Deon, now in a more serious tone, told Ed not to be too careful, indicating that he was planning something. Ed was concerned but continued with the preparations. Deon's thoughts wandered, pondering why Ed remained loyal to him despite his weaknesses and shortcomings. He questioned what was so charming about him and why Ed didn't complain. Ed completed Deon's battle outfit, and Deon, covered in the bondage cloth and wearing a red cloak and hood, looked like an assassin. Ed informed Deon that the cloth he was wearing had been specially made by the Demon King using magic. It would deflect the sun and regulate Deon's body temperature. Deon acknowledged this but was annoyed by how comfortable he felt. Ed emphasized that with the Zero Corps and Deon, they had nothing to worry about in the upcoming battle. Deon mentioned his intention to check on the 9 Corps commander's corpse and survey the area around the tent. Ed was concerned, suggesting Deon save his energy for the battle, but Deon insisted that he was already strong enough, but it was just an excuse. He's going to buy himself time and look for places to hide. Outside, the demon soldiers noticed Deon's presence and began discussing their anticipation of victory. The First Corps commander, Jakar, observed their spirited attitude, reaffirming the Demon King's decision. Even with his presence alone, their spirits are lifted. Deon, amidst the demons, wished they wouldn't pay attention to him, but they continued to do so. An assassin sent by the Empire's hero observed the situation from above, surprised that the Zero Corps commander actually existed. The assassin contemplated testing Deon's skills to gather information for the Empire. The tension in the situation continued to mount as the assassin took out a lethal poison dart, aiming it at Deon's head. Deon considered returning to his tent, but stumbled over a small rock, causing him to fall to his knee. It was at that exact moment that the assassin released the dart, but due to Deon's unexpected fall, the dart missed its mark and struck a nearby tree instead. Thinking he had successfully dodged the dart, the assassin swiftly moved among the branches of the tree to make his escape. Meanwhile, Deon cursed his luck, frustrated that he had almost fallen due to the rock on the path. He couldn't help but wonder why the paths weren't properly cleared. A concerned demon girl approached Deon, asking if he was okay, to which he sat down and pretended to be stretching. She reassured him, calling him Sir Arut and expressing her relief that he was already warming up. While Deon contemplated the lack of good hiding spots and decided to stay in the tent, the assassin continued to watch him closely. The assassin understood that Deon didn't want his subordinates to know about the suspicious intruder, and would likely inform his most trustworthy subordinate to handle the situation in secret. The assassin decided to bide his time for another opportunity to assess Deon's skills. As Ed arrived with a glass and a bottle of wine, he noticed that Deon had returned. He asked if he knew anything about the new hero among the human troops, mentioning that the second corps commander was investigating him. Deon and Ed engaged in conversation while the assassin remained hidden in the ceiling. The assassin grew anxious, wondering why Deon was talking about Cruel, the hero, rather than addressing his presence. He began to worry that Deon had already figured out that Cruel was behind the assassination attempt. Deon noticed the bottle of wine that Ed had brought and expressed his frustration that he wasn't allowed to drink, yet Ed was drinking by himself. However, Ed clarified that he had brought the wine for Deon. Deon's expression changed, and he asked Ed if he could drink it. Ed agreed, stating that it was acceptable to drink to ease nerves on the battlefield. He poured wine into Deon's glass, felt relieved, thinking that he had narrowly avoided a dangerous situation. After Ed pours wine to Deon's glass, they hear something from the outside and they look away. It was this time when something splashed on his glass. The assassin successfully put a poison in Deon's glass. The assassin thought, "What a fool. He was distracted by the rock I threw. Thankfully, he didn't notice I poisoned his drink. The deadliest poison that will kill you instantly with just one sip." As Deon nearly put the glass in his mouth, the assassin was patiently waiting and he thought, "Yes, this is the end for the Zero Corps commander." When Deon was about to drink, suddenly the glass fell to the ground. Seems like Deon threw it. The assassin was surprised. "There seems to be a pest among us," Deon says. As the glass fell and shattered, Deon quickly attempted to explain the situation to Ed. In a flashback moment, he thought about his frustration with a pesky fly that had been bothering him just before the glass fell. He wanted to swat the fly away, but the glass dropped unexpectedly. Ed, however, was not fooled by the seemingly innocent accident. He examined the broken glass and immediately recognized the signs of poison. Realization struck him, and he angrily confirmed that it was indeed an attempt on Deon's life. Ed's anger flared, and he declared that there must have been an intruder involved. He scanned the ceiling for any signs of the would-be assassin, but found nothing. It became clear to him that someone had tried to poison Deon. Meanwhile, the assassin had managed to escape and was making his way back to the Empire. He understood the gravity of the situation and knew he had to report to Sir Cruel as soon as possible. The encounter had revealed that the Zero Corps commander possessed extraordinary abilities, confirming that the rumors about him were not exaggerated. The assassin realized that Deon was a formidable and dangerous adversary. As he leaped from tree to tree, he couldn't help but feel a sense of dread about the task that lay ahead. Jakar's voice echoed through the dimly lit chamber as he announced the shocking intrusion. Somebody dared to break into this place. Their objective was to assassinate the Zero Corps commander. The words hung heavily in the air, sending ripples of fear and disbelief through the assembled soldiers. The reaction was immediate. One soldier blurted out in astonishment, "What? The Zero Corps commander?" Another, equally bewildered, replied, "But how were they able to get in here?" Apart from the Zero Corps commander, nobody seemed to have noticed a thing. Jakar, his expression a mix of anger and disappointment, spoke firmly, "I will punish you for letting the intruder get in here at a later time. For now, make sure there are no more enemies in the area." The soldiers sprang into action, securing the surroundings to prevent any further threats. Deon, the Zero Corps commander, stood with his arms folded, contemplating the danger he had just narrowly escaped. He couldn't help but think, "Wow, I seriously could have died." Ed, one of his trusted soldiers, approached and offered a heartfelt apology. "My apologies, Sir Arut. Due to my stupidity, I did not notice the intrusion until it was too late." Deon reassured Ed, "I didn't think they could get past you, Ed." And that shows just how skilled the assassin is. But in his mind, he couldn't help but entertain thoughts of stepping down from his position. He muttered to himself, "I should quit being the Zero Corps commander or something. Because of this stupid position, even the bastards from the Empire want to kill me." He added bitterly, "I didn't even get to drink because of that freaking assassin." Ed, willing to accept any punishment for his failure, said, "Whatever punishment you inflict, Ed will accept it." Deon then inquired about the wine. "Before you poured me the drink, the bottle was unopened, right?" Ed confirmed that it was, not realizing the hidden intentions behind the question. Deon, with a sly smirk, concluded, "Then that means that the wine is completely safe to drink." He had discerned that the poison was in the glass, not the bottle, and a sense of triumph filled him. Meanwhile, in the Empire, the assassin responsible for the intrusion reported on the Zero Corps commander's strength. The assassin remarked, "There doesn't seem to be a single lie in these rumors. If things keep proceeding like this, the Empire will not stand a chance." The Empire's commander acknowledged the threat, realizing that they needed a way to counter the powerful Zero Corps commander, who now sided with the demon faction. He was thinking of calling the other hero. The commander spoke to a soldier, saying, "Do you mean the other hero of the Empire?" And the reply came, "That's right. But since he's not here right now, we will retreat." The soldier expressed concern, fearing that a retreat might make them appear weak. The commander, however, had a strategic plan in mind. He explained, "We will retreat, but if there are any shits that follow, we just need to make sure to give them a most certain death." Their intention was to create an illusion of invincibility and reluctance to engage with the demon faction. The soldier questioned what they would tell the Empire about their retreat, and the commander replied, "The orders I received were to repossess the Empire's lands taken over by the demonic realm, not expand our territory into the demonic realm. We have already reclaimed the Empire's land. We do not need to cause any more friction between our realms, so we decided to retreat." The commander was mindful of his reputation as a hero and wanted to avoid any tarnish. He thought, "I don't need to go overboard and ruin my debut as a hero. I've come this far. I won't let anything smear my reputation as a hero." As the Empire's commander contemplated their course of action, another soldier rushed in with dire news. The demon troops were advancing, led by none other than the Zero Corps commander. The commander and the soldier conversing earlier were shocked by this unexpected turn of events. The commander realized that their carefully laid plans were unraveling, and nothing was going according to their strategy. The scene shifted back to Deon, who had swiftly become a menacing force, slashing through soldiers with his dagger. His laughter echoed through the chaos as he struck down his foes. Ed, seeing Deon while holding a soldier, exclaimed, "He drank the entire bottle, he's completely drunk right now." He was strangely elated, thinking that the situation couldn't get any better. And because of Sir Arut, everyone is in high spirits. Ed hurled the soldier aside, and the soldier's gaze fixed upon the commander of the Zero Corps. In his thoughts, the soldier pondered, who else could you label a demon if not that man? Despite clutching a sword, terror had gripped his mind. Deon leaned in close to the soldier, questioning, "Why are you seated here? If you wish to survive, you must fight. Otherwise, your demise will be swift." Deon raised his dagger, poised to strike the soldier, but an unexpected beam of light intercepted him, causing Deon to scatter. Stunned, Ed rushed to Deon's side. Ed exclaimed, "How dare you harm Sir Arut?" Just then, a hero arrived on the scene, the one responsible for unleashing the radiant beam that struck the Zero Corps commander. The hero remarked that his attack was intended to be a one-shot kill. Ed, turning his attention to the hero, realized it was indeed him, fully clad in armor. Meanwhile, Deon, bloody and coughing, caught Ed's concern. He removed a necklace, which had shattered. This necklace was a defensive talisman from Ririnal that had saved him from instant death. Without it, Deon would have perished from the previous attack. The human soldier wept as help arrived, and the renowned battlefield star, Sir Cruel, joined them. The soldier found solace in the hero's presence, but Deon abruptly rose and swiftly killed the soldier. He then continued toward the hero, inquiring, "So, are you the new hero?" The hero replied, "That's what they call me, though I feel undeserving of that title." Deon mentioned having heard a lot about the hero and asked if they had met before, as his voice sounded familiar. He requested the hero to remove his helmet, but the hero refused, not willing to reveal his identity to his enemies. Cruel also found Deon oddly familiar, but had never seen the Zero Corps commander before. Deon, juggling his dagger, remarked that since the hero wouldn't take off his helmet, he would do it for him. Deon swiftly moved toward the hero, attempting to stab him, but the hero evaded the attack by bending down. Krul noticed agility and resolved to track his movements. The two engaged in a heated battle, clashing weapons and evading strikes. Krul noted that Deon's attacks lacked force. In a powerful swing, Krul managed to disarm Deon. Deon glanced at his weapon just as the hero prepared to strike. Swiftly, he retrieved his spare weapon from his thigh and deflected the hero's attack. Amid their exchanged blows, Deon executed a well-aimed kick to the hero's stomach, effectively creating a gap between them. The hero observed that Deon's attack seemed weak and questioned if he was fighting at full strength. Suddenly, Deon stopped fighting, declaring that it was enough for the day. The hero insisted that the war wasn't over, but Deon argued that it was. He pointed out that the hero had killed the 9 Corps commander and invaded the demonic realm despite regaining the Empire's land. Deon suggested they settle for defending their respective territories, a proposal the hero eventually agreed to. Deon became serious, warning the hero that if he wanted to continue the war, his troops might not support him. The hero looked at his injured soldiers and decided to retreat. Krul acknowledged that he had lost his composure for a moment but believed it was wise to stick to the original plan. As Deon walked toward the demon soldiers, they expressed relief and praised Sir Arut for their victory. Jakar approached Deon, tapped his shoulder, and commended his efforts. However, Deon suddenly collapsed, and Jakar caught him. Jakar realized that Deon had been fighting while seriously ill, and had suppressed his desire to keep fighting to prevent their opponent from noticing his condition. Ben and Ed assisted Deon, noting his exhaustion from fighting while weakened. Jakar was deeply impressed by Deon's remarkable performance. Jakar bid farewell as they took Deon to his quarters and reflected on the Zero Corps commander's actions during the battle. Jakar stood there, watching as Ed and Ben escorted the weakened Zero Corps commander, Deon, to his quarters. In his mind, he couldn't help but ponder the remarkable turn of events. The Zero Corps commander appeared out of the blue, Jakar mused, his thoughts racing. He secured a position of power, eliminated the former 7 Corps commander, and even intervened to prevent the hero from self-destructing. And to top it all off, the Demon King himself recruited him. Although Jakar acknowledged that he couldn't deny the reality of these events, a sense of unease lingered deep within him. The sudden arrival and rapid ascension of the enigmatic Zero Corps commander had left him with a nagging feeling that there was more to this figure than met the eye. But today, on the battlefield, Deon had showcased his prowess and demonstrated why he held the title of the Zero Corps commander of the Demon Realm. His strategic brilliance and combat skills were undeniable, and Jakar couldn't deny the value he brought to their cause. Resolute in his decision, Jakar made a silent vow as he watched them depart. "Leave everything else to me," he thought, his determination clear. "I'll stand as the guardian of our realm, alongside Demon Arut." The scene shifted to Resignation, who sensed that the necklace had broken. A demon beside her misunderstood the situation, fearing that a demonic monster had breached the seal. Resignation clarified that it was the necklace she had given to Arut that had broken. She became worried for Arut's safety and decided to head over to him despite the demon soldier's objections. She reassured herself by saying, "Don't worry, Sir Arut, Resignation is coming." The next chapter began with the Demon King eagerly awaiting the return of the Zero Corps. As Deon arrived, the king warmly welcomed him and acknowledged his achievements, praising him for his exceptional work on the battlefield. The Demon King remarked, "I heard it from Jakar. You did a number this time, too, huh? You never let me down. So, how was your meeting with the new hero?" Deon's expression remained serious as he replied, "There's something I need to inform you about the new hero." The king sensed that Deon hadn't fully calmed down from the recent battle, which added an air of urgency to the conversation. The king suggested they move inside to chat and mentioned that the 2nd Corps commander had brought new information about the hero as well. Deon's expression changed when he heard about the 2nd Corps commander, but the king reassured him, "Judging from your expression, you don't like the 2nd Corps commander very much. But they're very busy right now sorting through all the information. Won't be able to get out of their room for a while, so don't worry. Changed and come to the office." In the office, the Demon King handed Deon some documents and encouraged him to take a look because they contained fascinating information. As Deon began to read the contents, he suddenly felt surprised and disoriented. He couldn't understand how he had ended up back at the Demon King's castle when he had just been on the battlefield moments ago. Resignation was there, crying and hugging him tightly. She expressed immense relief at his safety, leaving Deon puzzled. A flashback revealed Deon holding a bottle of wine, making him wonder if he had blacked out after drinking just one bottle. Resignation explained that the necklace she had given him had broken, so she rushed to the battlefield to find him. To her astonishment, she learned that he had already returned to the Demon King's castle. Deon couldn't help but be surprised by this revelation and questioned why the necklace, supposed to prevent sudden death, had failed. Resignation continued to praise Deon for his accomplishments on the battlefield, describing him as our Sir Arut. Deon couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling of having almost died and began contemplating whether he should quit drinking altogether. However, his attention was soon drawn to the paper he held in his hands. When he opened it, he saw the face of the hero, Cruel Heart. Instantly, Deon's mind raced back to a painful memory from his past. He couldn't forget the name and the person associated with it, his older brother. In a flashback scene, Deon Hart knelt, covered in blood, while his brother, Cruel Heart, stood before him, attempting to swing a sword at him. The scene transitioned back to the present, leaving Deon with a heavy sense of unease and unresolved emotions. Deon found himself pondering the sudden revelation that Cruel, his older brother, had become the hero. He couldn't help but wonder when this transformation had occurred. Sensing the need to address these thoughts, he gently tapped Resignation on the head and told her that he had something to take care of. With a farewell to Resignation, he made his way out. A curious demon servant approached Resignation and asked why the Zero Corps commander had suddenly appeared angry, noting how scary he could be. In response, Resignation blushed and remarked on how attractive she found Deon. In his room, Deon's mind raced. He couldn't help but feel a growing anger toward the Emperor. Emperor, he seethed internally. You already know everything that happened, yet you still had Cruel take the hero position. Deon couldn't shake the feeling that the Emperor was well aware of his involvement with the demon army. Memories of the recent encounter with the Demon King flooded his mind. The king had asked him if it was time for Deon to make a trip to the Empire, and Deon had agreed, planning to gather more information about the new hero. As he recalled the conversation, Deon realized that the king had placed a tracking spell on his shoulder, serving as a form of insurance. The Demon King had emphasized that Deon should keep him informed of anything useful. The core commander of the demon realm and the hero of the Empire, the king had stated. Deon couldn't help but wonder why he had been chosen to act as a spy for the Demon King. He theorized that extreme stress might trigger memory loss, vowing to remain stress-free to preserve his memories. Ed suddenly entered the room, interrupting Deon's thoughts. Ed mentioned that he had heard the king discussing Deon's trip to the human realm and asked if there was anything he wanted to convey. Deon noted that Ed had been absent from his side but was in the company of the Demon King. He replied that it was indeed time for his return and that there was something personal he needed to investigate. He then turned the question around, asking Ed if there was something he wished to share. Ed's thoughts continued to dwell on the recent conversation he had with the Demon King. The king had approached Ed with an unexpected offer, asking if he wanted to become the Corps commander since the 9 Corps commander position had become vacant. As the king explained that the Corps commander position had remained filled until now, he admitted that he had placed Ed in the role of vice commander of the Zero Corps, because he believed Ed possessed the qualifications and skills necessary to be a Corps commander. The offer had taken Ed by surprise. Ed's mind raced as he considered the prospect. I had forgotten while I was serving Sir Arut, he thought. But it's a position I've always wanted, a Corps commander. Turning to the king, Ed inquired about the fate of the vice commander of the Zero Corps if he were to accept the role of Corps commander. The king responded that they would need to recruit someone new who was next in line after Ed to fill the vice commander position. The king made it clear that he wasn't forcing Ed into the role but raised an important question: how would Ed feel if a junior, someone weaker than him, were to become his superior? The decision was left in Ed's hands, with the king emphasizing the potential consequences of his choice. Back in the present, Ed found himself discussing the matter with Deon. Deon asked if the Demon King had said anything to him, suspecting that Ed might have faced repercussions for his earlier drinking incident. However, Ed chose not to reveal the true nature of his conversation with the king. Instead, Ed informed Deon that he intended to have the chef prepare something special before Deon left for the human realm. Deon sensed that Ed had something on his mind but didn't want to pressure him. A demon soldier saluted them, notifying Deon that his carriage was ready. Deon acknowledged the soldier's message and took a moment to convey his final words to Ed. He urged Ed to take good care of himself until his return. As Deon prepared to leave, a thought crossed his mind. Had Ed asked to step down from his role as vice commander because it had been challenging to serve him? Deon decided to pose the question to Ed directly, seeking clarity on the matter. He asked Ed if there was anything specific he desired from the human realm, considering Deon's upcoming trip to the Empire. Deon even suggested that he might bring back some snacks or items that could be useful for a long time. Ed replied that he didn't have any particular requests. Deon decided to choose something appropriate instead, determined to show his appreciation for his loyal vice commander. As Deon prepared to depart, Ed issued a final reminder. He urged Deon to always wear the necklace from Ben and the robe while in the human realm, ensuring his safety. Inwardly, Ed marveled at the unique bond he shared with Deon. Is there any other superior in all of the demon realm who is this concerned about his juniors? Ed wondered. And there's no superior who needs so much help, either. But the fact that Sir Arut needs me does not make me upset. Ed's respect and loyalty for Deon shone brightly. He recognized that he didn't want to become a corps commander, he cherished his role as vice commander for Sir Arut. Above all, he wanted to be of help to Deon. With unwavering dedication, Ed concluded his thoughts as Deon departed. So, Zero Corps Commander, wherever you go, please have a safe trip. Ed vowed to await Deon's return, ready to resume his role as vice commander and offer his unwavering support. The following day, in front of the Hart estate, 2 guards stood watch at the gate. They noticed someone approaching and halted the man, informing him that this was the Hart estate and the Count was currently away. They firmly stated that outsiders were not permitted to enter. Little did they know that the man they were addressing was none other than Deon Hart himself. Deon, with an air of authority, ordered the guards to open the gates. The guards remained resolute, questioning his attitude. They warned him that if he came any closer, they would attack. Deon, with a hint of annoyance, removed his hood and mask, revealing his identity. He demanded, "I'm trying to enter my own home, and you dare to stop me?" The guards quickly recognized him and respectfully addressed him as my lord. Inside the Hart estate, the maids hurriedly spread the word that the Count had returned. As Deon entered the house, the maids collectively welcomed him with reverence, causing Deon to think, "I told them they don't need to greet me like this." As he removed his coat, the butler greeted him, acknowledging his return with a warm welcome. Deon reflected on how the butler had been a part of the household since he inherited the estate. Seeing the familiar faces made him truly feel like he had returned home. He greeted the butler, remarking that it had indeed been a long time. The butler concurred, mentioning that it had been around 6 months. He inquired about Deon's successful completion of the monster subjugation mission, to which Deon responded affirmatively. However, the butler couldn't help but notice Deon's injuries and expressed his concern. He humorously touched Deon's face and remarked that he was too old to revenge him from the monsters. Deon reassured the butler that he was no longer a child and that it was fine. The butler acknowledged his status as an honored count and suggested having Deon's room freshened up, considering his weariness from the long journey home. However, Deon declined, explaining that he intended to see the Emperor right away, despite his own desire to lie down. Deon cast his gaze upon a large picture on the wall inside his house, a family portrait of the Hart family. The image was partially blocked by curtains, prompting Deon's thoughts to turn to the Emperor. He realized that the Emperor was likely aware of his return to the Empire and that he needed to question him about his brother, Cruel. The butler vowed to fulfill Deon's orders and make the necessary preparations. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Duke Illister Starb, who mused about Deon Hart's return and referred to him as the Emperor's loyal servant. He questioned Cruel, inquiring about his plans now that his younger brother had returned. Cruel remained silent as Duke Illister Starb discussed their plans. Duke suggested that Cruel's request to the Assassination Guild might risk exposing their intentions. Instead, he hinted at another card they had up their sleeve and turned to Shailin for confirmation. Shailin inquired if Duke was referring to the Revolutionary Army, and Duke affirmed it. He believed that if this group, which sought to overthrow the emperor, became involved, the risk of exposure would matter less. He noted that he hadn't expected Krul to overlook such an obvious strategy. Krul apologized for his oversight and agreed to contact the Revolutionary Army. Duke wondered about the skills of the emperor's hero, the honorary Count Deon Hart. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Deon, who was being dressed by maids. They complimented him, saying that the outfit suited him well. Deon found the process chaotic, as everything from bathing to getting dressed had happened in an instant. He was relieved when it was finally over. Two maids engaged in a discussion about Deon's attire. One thought that a military uniform would make him look more outstanding, but the other argued that the trend was to appear austere, even though all the outfits were white. The butler handed Deon a mask, advising him to wear it due to the strong sunlight. Deon thanked the butler and expressed his gratitude for looking after the estate while he was away. The butler humbly responded, expressing pride in seeing Deon grow into a great count and suggesting retirement once Deon returned. Deon was taken aback by the idea and attempted to dissuade the butler, but the butler quickly revealed he was joking. As Deon realized he had fallen for the butler's jest, he couldn't help feeling irritated. The butler, still smiling, admitted that seeing Deon flustered was his only source of joy. The butler, named Remember, pushed Deon playfully and then mentioned that the carriage was ready. Outside, there was a beautiful garden and a fountain where Deon's carriage awaited. As Deon boarded the carriage, he expressed his preference for fewer guards, as few in the Empire knew of his return, and he expected the journey wouldn't take long. Deon, sitting in the carriage, expressed his preference for only a few guards, as few people in the Empire knew of his return, and he believed the journey wouldn't take long. As the carriage prepared to depart, an officer outside informed him that half of the troops would follow him and asked the guards to stay within their ranks. Deon couldn't help but think about the Emperor of the Empire, Eduardo Desire. He was known for seizing the throne by eliminating all his competitors, including his own siblings, which resulted in a gruesome coronation ceremony where he was crowned while covered in their blood. The emperor even changed the name of the nation from the Old Kingdom to the Empire and declared it under his rule, sparking a war that lasted 8 years. Deon had participated in that war, which had been a nightmarish experience, leading to the loss of half his memories. However, he remembered his life mission from that time. While lost in his thoughts, the carriage suddenly started acting strangely. Deon asked the driver what was happening and then stepped out of the carriage to investigate. He was shocked to see his soldiers engaged in a battle with soldiers wearing blue garments with a single white bird emblem, the Revolutionary Army. Deon realized that they had somehow learned of his return, and he knew the situation was dire. He decided to join the battle to help his soldiers. However, before he could act, a man appeared beside him and grabbed his neck while holding an axe. The man taunted Deon, calling him the dog of the Empire. It seemed that Deon had been caught off guard, and his situation had taken a dangerous turn. In the preceding chapter, Deon found himself ensnared by a member of the Revolutionary Army. As his captor's grip tightened around his neck, Deon's thoughts turned to the despised emperor, whom he blamed for spawning such reckless individuals. Regardless of their beliefs, he cared little for them, all he wanted was to avoid becoming their victim. The man confronting Deon nervously admitted, "I was apprehensive because they hailed you as a hero, but you appear to be nothing more than a scrawny weakling." Deon countered with resolve, asserting, "I'm not a pawn of the emperor." Suddenly, to Deon's surprise, the man offered an apology and inquired about his name. Deon revealed himself as Deon Hart. However, the man seized him once again, his anger boiling over as he accused Deon of being the emperor's lackey. Deon vehemently denied this accusation, asserting, "I am Deon Hart." The man remarked, "White hair, red eyes, and bad manners, just as the rumors described." Meanwhile, Deon discreetly searched for his dagger. With a swift movement, he retrieved the weapon and attempted to strike the man, but the attempt was deftly thwarted by the man's axe. The man scolded him, commanding, "Stop fooling around," before forcefully slamming Deon to the ground. As the man readied himself to deliver a fatal blow with his raised axe, a sudden interruption occurred. Another individual, armed with a spear, stepped in and disarmed the man. It was revealed that this newcomer was a member of the murderous Ghost Knights, a group born from the 8-Year War, and led by none other than Deon Hart himself. Panicking, the man exclaimed, "How did they find us?" "Block them." A fellow knight proposed, "I don't think we can simply let them go. Should we create a commotion?" The knight in command ordered the execution of all the men who had attempted to ambush Deon. The murderous Ghost Knights showed no mercy as they dispatched the Revolutionary Army members with ruthless efficiency. The man pondered, what's terrifying about them isn't their skills, but the fact that they have completely abandoned rationality. It's their sheer brutality, reminiscent of their masters. If we engage them head-on, we'll be at a disadvantage. We must eliminate Deon and retreat. Even as the man continued to hold Deon by the neck, Deon attempted to injure him using only his bare hands. In response, the man hurled Deon into a nearby carriage, feeling the pain in his arm. Deon expressed remorse, confessing that he had intended to sever the arm completely but lacked the strength to do so. However, he proceeded to finish off the man by wielding the axe with both hands and delivering a fatal blow. Stepping outside the carriage, a soldier spotted him and addressed him as captain. Deon debated whether to cease his actions, but he ultimately decided against it, thinking, "He's already dead, should I continue? No, I need to set an example so that no one else will dare to attack me again. Just a bit more to ensure that nobody will forget this scene." Deon continued to stab the lifeless body, his actions observed by the murderous Ghost Knights who commented, "That's our captain, he's ruthless." One knight mused, "Doesn't it seem like he didn't need us in the first place?" The response came, "What are you saying? He only brought mediocre men like them. If it weren't for us, things would have been much more complicated." Deon then redirected his attention to the knights and ordered them to eliminate the remaining enemies. The scene transitioned to the Empire's castle, where Deon's carriage had arrived, its exterior marred by splotches that initially puzzled the guards. However, they soon recognized the stains as blood. Stepping out of the carriage, Deon confronted the guards, who informed him that he couldn't enter the royal palace without an invitation. Deon confidently stated, "I am Deon Hart, I've come to see His Majesty." The guards promptly apologized, knowing that Deon had been granted direct permission by the king to visit at his leisure, though they were taken aback by his disheveled appearance. Deon inquired about the king's whereabouts, and the guard informed him that the king was in the banquet hall. Inside the hall, a grand celebration was in progress, celebrating the triumphant debut and success of the new hero. A devilish smile crossed Deon's face as he contemplated the presence of his brother, the newly acclaimed hero, among the celebrants. He suspected that his brother was in attendance at the banquet. Inside the grand halls of the Empire's royal palace, the emperor was engaged in a conversation. "So, you've successfully reclaimed the land taken by the demons? How remarkable," he praised. Kneeling before the emperor was Cruel Heart, the newly acclaimed hero. He humbly responded, "I merely fulfilled my duty." The emperor rose from his seat, holding a glass of wine aloft, and declared, "Today, we celebrate the birth of a new hero named Cruel Heart and congratulate him on his debut. Please enjoy yourselves." However, the emperor's words were abruptly interrupted when Deon Hart entered the hall, his clothing and body stained with blood from the previous battle. As he walked in, a nearby observer remarked, "I don't know who that is, but he's incredibly rude. Wait, although I can't see clearly, doesn't he have red eyes and white hair?" It became apparent that some recognized him as the honorary Count Deon Hart. Ignoring the commotion, Deon continued to make his way through the hall, passing by Cruel Heart. Inwardly, he thought, "It seems my beloved brother has somehow obtained the hero's fragment." Deon then knelt before the emperor, showing his respect, and greeted him with, "Brilliance to the Empire. Your servant, Deon Hart, greets the Empire." The hall buzzed with murmurs as onlookers commented on his blood-stained appearance and peculiar red eyes and white hair, some even speculating about his place within the Hart family. The Duke, observing the situation, reflected, "Deon Hart, you've returned alive. How incredibly tenacious." Addressing Deon, the emperor mentioned, "It's been a long time, honorary Count Deon Hart. I did say you could come see me whenever you like. What kind of disrespect is this?" Deon, apologizing, explained, there was an ambush on the way here. The Emperor, somewhat puzzled, inquired, an ambush? Who would dare to attack the hero of the Empire? He silently thanked himself for having sent knights to escort Deon. It seems you have quite a lot to say to me. Why don't we take this elsewhere, as I have things I want to hear from you as well. The scene shifted to a private room where Deon and the Emperor engaged in a more private conversation. The Emperor expressed concern, you said there was an ambush? I can already see it was the Revolutionary Army, no doubt. Sick bastards. So, are you feeling all right? Should I call a doctor? Internally, the Emperor pondered, it is openly known that everyone looks at him negatively. What fools! What other talent has achieved as much as Deon Hart? As the vanguard of the 8-Year War, he accomplished a grander feat than any other. When he left as the hero's comrade, he managed to retrieve the corpse of the hero, which no one had been able to accomplish before. A hero who is defeated by the Demon King is normally tossed to the demons as fodder, so if Deon Hart had not been able to save him, the hero would have met the same fate. It is an incredible achievement to accomplish while facing off against the Demon King. However, there was a price to pay. The Emperor finally asked Deon, have you figured out a way to undo the curse? At this moment, Deon recalled the seal of the Demon King but admitted, I have not. Internally, Deon thought, this isn't a curse, but a tracking spell. However, the Emperor thinks I have become weaker due to the curse of the Demon King. The Emperor continued the conversation, revealing, I sent you to the Demon Realm since the Demon King is the only one who can undo the curse. Deon pondered, he's using me as a spy at the Demon King's castle, but what a thing to say. The Emperor further mentioned, I guess you need to go back to the Demon Realm, then. It gives me great discomfort to send such a rare talent to such a horrendous place. Deon reflected on the situation, thinking, he's sending me back as a spy. Well, I didn't have any ways to reject him. The Emperor shifted the conversation, asking, what's going on at the Demon King's castle these days? Deon responded, there isn't anything new, but I found the assassin you sent to the Demon King's castle. He turned out to be more than just a disposable pawn. He was a hero candidate. Why did you send him to the Demon Realm? The Emperor explained, he was trash that soiled the name of the hero. I figured he would die before even reaching the Demon Realm, but I guess he managed to survive because he had a fragment of the hero. But thanks to that trash, I think your status in the Demon Realm has become much better. Isn't that right, Zero Corps Commander Demon Arut? Deon was surprised by this revelation, thinking, to think he knew so much already. Apologies, I did not have any ways to reject him. The Emperor reassured him, saying, it's fine. I didn't bring it up to blame you. The more you are accepted, the easier it'll be for you to intercept information. To be acknowledged even in the Demon Realm shows that you really are a true talent. Now, isn't there something you really wanted to ask me? Deon took this opportunity to inquire, why did you place Cruel Heart in the position of the hero? The Emperor understood the underlying motive behind Deon's question, you already know, Your Majesty, that my only regret is that I wasn't able to kill Cruel Heart. He is the only survivor of the Hart family, aside from myself. No, he is the only remaining member of the Hart family who survived me, Deon Hart. The narrative then shifted to a flashback scene where a young Deon was seen gazing at a family portrait on the wall. Cruel called out to him, reminding him that their parents were waiting. Deon followed him, asking if it was already time for lunch. He quickly apologized, to which Cruel reassured him, saying it was all right, and they needed to hurry. However, Deon stopped his brother and expressed concern, what if you get scolded too, brother, because of me? Cruel responded, I'm dirty because I just got back from training. Deon paused for a moment and said, sorry, it's okay with me even if your hands are dirty. Cruel continued walking, and Deon ran to catch up, urging him to wait. Suddenly, Cruel halted, and Deon bumped into him. Cruel remarked, you must really like that family portrait, huh? You've been staring at it for days. Deon admitted, yeah. Whenever I look at it, I feel like it's telling me, we're family. Cruel dismissed his sentiment, stating, it's just a painting. Cruel then scolded Deon, saying, yes, so don't go roaming around too much and stay in your room. As the scene shifted, two maids were gossiping about Deon, with one expressing discomfort about his red eyes and white hair, while the other wondered why he was so different from the rest of the family. Unbeknownst to them, Deon was eavesdropping from behind a wall, contemplating, "I've always felt like I was alone. But whenever I look at that family portrait, it feels like I'm a part of this family." The narrative then transitioned to a family dinner where their father inquired about their delay. Deon's mother expressed concern for his well-being, worried that he might have a fever. However, their father insisted that Deon couldn't stay at home forever. Their father mentioned attending a banquet at the royal family's palace that night, and Deon expressed his desire to join them. His father urged him to be cautious and not reveal his peculiarities to the world. Deon bent down, promising to remember his father's words. Reflecting on his appearance and frailty, Deon thought, "I'm sure my parents are dissatisfied with me. An appearance that doesn't resemble them, and a weak body. They're just huge flaws in the highly renowned county." Cruel changed the subject, inquiring about a new swordmaster their father had hired. Deon couldn't help but think that Cruel was doing so to divert the conversation away from his own peculiarities. Their father chuckled, saying, "Since your skills just keep getting better, it's difficult to find a great swordmaster." Deon's mother added, "Although you say such things, weren't you excited while you were searching around?" Internally, Deon observed, "The atmosphere in the dining room changed as soon as my brother spoke. Brother really is amazing. Since I'm a lacking child, am I lonely even though we're together? Yes, this loneliness is completely my fault. That's all right. I'm part of the Hart family too. If I try, I'm sure I can do as well as my brother. Then my family will love me more." The narrative then shifted to a banquet scene where Deon, dressed in a robe and princely attire, was approached by another child who addressed him. Deon responded, asking if they were talking to him. Child approached Deon and asked if he was Deon Hart. Deon felt a rush of happiness, thinking, "He's speaking to me. This is the first time I am speaking to anyone my age. I'm happy, but what if I make a mistake?" Shyly, Deon replied with a simple hi. The child asked why Deon was by himself, and Deon explained that his family had gone to see his brother's swordmaster. The other child, with folded arms and an arrogant attitude, remarked, "Without you? You really have no clue, do you?" Deon's initial happiness faded, and he responded more seriously. The child continued, saying, "There's already a widespread rumor about you being the black sheep of the Hart family. Is it true that your family locked you up?" Deon denied the rumors and said, "No. Of course not. I just get sick a lot." However, the other child got closer and began belittling Deon, calling him a dirty bastard and claiming that white hair and red eyes were ominous. He insisted that even if they were family, they couldn't possibly love someone like Deon, who had been abandoned by the Hart family. Deon was on the verge of tears, but suddenly reacted by punching the other child in the face, shouting, "Stop it! Why are you uttering such nonsense when you know nothing? My family is nice to me." In retaliation, the child punched Deon back, holding him and repeatedly hitting him while insulting him further. Deon, lying on the ground and staring into nothingness, thought to himself, "No, I'm not a monster." Fortunately, another child intervened, stopping the attack on Deon. Deon remained on the ground, lost in thought, until his older brother, Cruel, arrived. The narrative then shifted to a palace hospital where a doctor examined Deon. The doctor commented that Deon had a very weak body and was extremely vulnerable to stress. He also noted that Deon should be careful around sunlight, but mentioned that his liver seemed strong. Deon's mother expressed concern, asking the doctor if it was that bad, while his father appeared disappointed. Their father lamented, "We've never had such a child in the Hart family. How could this happen?" Deon looked at his parents and thought, "Mother, father, I'm sorry. I'll try harder. Please don't hate me." He tried to reach out to them, but Cruel grabbed his hand. Cruel reassured Deon, saying, "It's all right. You don't need to do anything. Nobody has any expectations of you anyway. Monster." Deon was jolted awake from his dream, shouting in surprise. His parents heard his cry. His mother was deeply concerned and asked, "What happened? How could you get into a fight at the palace?" His father scolded him as well, expressing his frustration at Deon's behavior, saying, "I already told you that you need to be extra careful outside. Look at what you've done now." Deon apologized, explaining that the other kids had started the fight. However, the memory of being punched by the other child continued to haunt him. He hesitated to share this detail with his father, fearing that his father might think the same way as those kids did. In response, Deon downplayed the incident, telling them it was nothing. His mother burst into tears, while his father decided on a punishment, saying, "I guess it was too early for you to go outside. You will be prohibited from going outside for a while. Reflect on your actions in your room." Deon felt a deep sense of agony, not wanting to be abandoned or disappoint his parents. He yearned for their love and acceptance and vowed to try harder to overcome his weaknesses, determined to become someone his family would be proud of. He locked himself in his room, where two servants discussed his situation. One servant remarked that Master Deon hadn't come out of his room today either, and the other expressed sympathy, acknowledging the difficulties Deon faced in gaining recognition. From his room, Deon could hear the laughter of his family outside. He approached the window and saw his parents encouraging Krul, who was receiving their support and attention. In his thoughts, Deon struggled with his desire for recognition, reminding himself not to be greedy. Deon picked up a wooden sword and began his training, realizing that if he wanted his family to acknowledge him, he needed to become stronger. He resolved to train for an additional 30 minutes that day, determined to improve himself. As the sunlight faded and night fell upon the Hart estate, Deon continued his intense training with determination. He felt that he had to keep pushing himself, telling himself that he needed to do more, just a little more. However, Krul intervened, holding Deon's wooden sword and noticing that Deon's nose was bleeding. Filled with anger, Krul demanded to know what Deon was doing. Deon stammered, explaining that he only wanted to train to become stronger. Krul's anger flared, and he sternly reminded Deon that he had explicitly instructed him not to do anything and to remain quietly in his room. Deon nodded obediently, but in his thoughts, he questioned whether he should do nothing at all, feeling like a failure. With a faint, Joker-like smile, Deon asked Krul to leave his room, saying that he wouldn't do anything, as nobody expected anything from him. Krul left the room, leaving Deon to contemplate what he needed to do to be loved within the Hart family. A servant knocked on Deon's door, inquiring whether young Master Deon would be dining in his room as usual. Deon asked about the whereabouts of the others, referring to his parents. He was now 14 years old. The servant clarified that Deon's parents were out attending to urgent matters. Krul then entered the room and informed Deon that he had finished his training in the morning, inviting Deon to play chess with him. Deon thought about how, after he had given up trying, his brother Krul occasionally came to play chess with him. He realized that he didn't see much of his parents. Deon agreed to play chess and, when Krul asked if he had interrupted Deon while he was busy, Deon replied that he wasn't busy at all. Krul mentioned that their parents were busy due to the chaos in the nation. He acknowledged that he was aware it was a lie but found himself clinging to the hope that it might be true. Deon couldn't help but think that the reason for their absence might be because they didn't want to see him. In the midst of his thoughts, Krul revealed that he wouldn't be able to come and play chess with Deon for a while. Deon apologized, feeling guilty for thinking that Krul might have found it cumbersome to visit him. Krul clarified that it wasn't about being cumbersome but rather because of an impending war. He mentioned that at least one member of their family would be conscripted. However, before Krul could finish his sentence, an unexpected visitor entered Deon's room. Krul immediately demanded to know who the intruder was and how they dared to enter. The newcomer explained that they had come to deliver a message from the Empire and asked which one of them was Deon Hart. Deon stared at the man, filled with curiosity and a sense of foreboding. The man who had entered Deon's room forcibly grabbed his arm and insisted that they would discuss the details on the way. Outside the room, the soldiers continued to gossip about Deon. They expressed doubts about whether Deon, who looked scrawny, could even wield a sword. One of the soldiers speculated that the Hart family was trying to get rid of him on the battlefield. Krul intervened, questioning the man who wanted to take Deon away. He asserted that Deon couldn't possibly be the subject of conscription and suggested there might be a mistake. The man responded by explaining that the Hart family had filed an official document with the royal family, and they were merely fulfilling their duties. He advised Krul to check with Deon's parents to clarify the situation. Despite Krul's objections, the soldiers forcibly dragged Deon out of his room. Deon couldn't make sense of the situation and was left bewildered and distraught. He wondered if his parents had decided to send him to war, despite his weakness. The idea of participating in the war and facing potential death filled him with dread, and he couldn't comprehend why his family would subject him to this fate. He looked back for his brother, but found no one there, which brought tears to his eyes as he felt abandoned and unloved. The scene shifted to a weapon room on the battlefield, where Deon was given a sword. The soldier informed him that he would be sent to the front lines soon and advised him to become stronger if he didn't want to die. As Deon held the heavy sword, the soldiers nearby continued to gossip about him, commenting on his status as a renowned family's son and speculating about his ability to handle a sword. They believed he was likely to die soon due to his apparent lack of skill and strength. Deon couldn't bear the thought of dying in such a horrific place, and his fear intensified as he entered the battlefield. The chaos of endless fighting, screams, and the overwhelming stench of blood surrounded him. Tragically, a fellow soldier died, and Deon found himself pinned underneath the fallen comrade, struggling to escape the heavy weight on top of him. In his desperate mind, he kept repeating, "I don't want to die in a place like this." In the midst of the battlefield, an enemy suddenly appeared in front of Deon, and a fellow soldier protected him. The soldier yelled at him, urging him to stop thinking negatively and to fight for his survival. He emphasized that Deon should pick up any weapon available, even if he couldn't handle a sword, and use it to stay alive. The soldier's words ignited a fire within Deon, and he realized that he couldn't die in this place. A dagger dropped in front of Deon, and he grasped it tightly. Determined to survive, he channeled his anger and focused on the single word, "kill." With the dagger in hand, he began to eliminate the enemy soldiers, instilling fear in them and paralyzing them with terror. Deon grew up in the battlefield. While fighting, Deon couldn't help but think about going home. He desperately wanted to return, but knew that survival was his immediate priority. An enemy attacked from the side, and Deon swiftly countered the assault, ultimately killing the enemy. As he stood over the fallen foe, he questioned whether home was a happy place. The scene shifted to the Empire's camp, where a soldier excitedly announced the arrival of gifts from loved ones. Deon observed the joy and gratitude of his fellow soldiers as they received letters and tokens from their families. However, there were no gifts under Deon's name, only a letter appointing him as a commander on the front lines. It was at this moment that Deon made up his mind to ensure that the Hart family, which had sent him to this hellish place, would also suffer a similar fate. The scene then shifted to the Hart estate, where the door was open, and a guard had been killed by a man. Shockingly, that man was Deon Hart himself. His parents, terrified, faced him as he pointed a dagger at them. Deon coldly greeted them and proceeded to attack his own father, stabbing him in the chest. His father coughed up blood, and his wife rushed to his side. Standing over them, Deon raised his dagger and killed his own mother. In his mind, he believed that he had finally achieved the dream he had yearned for over the years. Deon found himself in a chaotic and nightmarish scenario, confronting his own parents with a knife in his hand. He lashed out at them, expressing his anger and pain at the way he had been treated and the love he had never received. However, his tirade was interrupted when his brother Krul arrived on the scene. Deon was in a state of distress, pleading for his brother's help. A sinister voice echoed in Deon's mind, casting doubt on Krul's intentions. Deon and Krul engaged in a deadly confrontation, with Deon trying to defend himself with his dagger. Deon accused Krul of being a bystander who had abandoned him in his time of need, and he was consumed by a desire to end his own suffering. As the dagger tumbled into his grasp, he found himself kneeling and pondered, "Have I pushed my physical capabilities to the extreme? This frail body of mine. I cannot succumb to unconsciousness at this moment. I am determined to defeat Krul." Just then, Krul swiftly emerged, wielding a sword and preparing to strike with a powerful overhead slash. As the scene shifted back to reality, Deon found himself in the royal banquet hall, where Lian Reyna, the lofty knight's commander, called out to him. Deon was initially relieved to see someone normal among the people he had encountered, but quickly realized that something was amiss. He had no memory of how he had arrived at the royal palace or changed his attire. His last memory was the carriage was ambushed. Deon tried to piece together the events, but his memory was fragmented and disjointed. He couldn't recall seeing the emperor or receiving any news. Lian explained that the banquet was being held to celebrate the birth and debut of the new hero, Cruel Heart. Cruel greeted Deon, and Deon couldn't help but feel that his bad dream held some significance in his current situation.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more content. Feel free to leave a comment down below sharing your thoughts or suggestions. If you want to stay updated on all our latest uploads, click the notification bell icon. And hey, why not check out some of our other videos popping up on the screen right now? If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by liking, sharing, and subscribing. It really means a lot. Peace.